here's I guess the uncomfortable question. It's not as simple as to just say, hey, if you're the 49ers, would you go back to last February, 2021? Would you still do the deal? Here's why I'm asking, and we just heard from Jeff Wilson, who was on Damon and Ratto yesterday, and just could not stop praising Jimmy Garoppolo. And as I watch him play, here's what's going through my mind. I get it. It was just 2.5 weeks ago that he ran out of the back of the end zone. Okay? So this is not going to turn into your father's Jimmy Garoppolo conversation.
Yes. I'm
not here to argue with you. And when I say you, I'm talking about anybody.
Oh, we can argue.
I'm not here to argue about whether or not Jimmy's good, great, kind of good, bad, stinks, garbage. The 15th ranked. Okay, we've done this a billion times. Here's where I'm at. I watch even Trevor Lawrence, who was the generational first pick in the draft, and he looks good. He looks like he might be something really good.
He looks like the best of the bunch. And by the way, 6 quarterbacks. So you got to always throw Davis Mills.
Davis Mills, who's
he's
got a gig. Yeah, he's got a gig, and he's fine.
He's better than
Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick has been given 3 opportunities this week publicly to say, when Mac Jones is healthy, is he your quarterback?
We're on to Cincinnati.
Who are they playing this? We're on to Cleveland.
We're on to Zippy.
I'm going back to Cleveland.
Zeppy.
Yeah, Zappos. Whatever the heck his name is.
Zell.
I mean, remember how Bill Belichick found his last quarterback? Drew Bledsoe got hurt, and they found his last quarterback.
Man, did he get hurt.
Right. So I don't know about Mac Jones. I will tell you, I feel like I know about Justin Fields. Ugh. I don't like the way that looks at all. The Jets suddenly look like the flavor of the week. Robert Saleh's got a little something going there that's different. They're 3-2, but is that based on Zach Wilson? I don't know. I guess the whole thing is, that's my point. All 6 of them are still ... question marks. Therefore, if you go back to Jimmy, you win 2 football games, and the whole world's got the 49ers at number 6 on their power ranking.
Right.
And watch out for the Niners. We think they might win the Super Bowl. Isn't it fair for me, the fan, to say, I don't want to go through growing pains. I don't want to go through the journey of, is Trey good? Because he might be. And I'd love the 49ers to have a better quarterback than Jimmy. But the likelihood is he's not, because most quarterbacks aren't better than Jimmy, no matter what you guys want to do with that statement.
17, Mark. So,
Most quarterbacks can't do what Jimmy keeps doing over and over and over with this team. And while you can fairly clap back and go, it wasn't good enough, you're right. And this is where I'll admit that I'm a little bit of a different fan than some. I want to be in the mix every year. And if you fall short, even most of the time, I'm mostly going to be okay with that, because you can be in the mix every year. And I do think you're going to break through at least once or twice in a 9-year period, right, or whatever.
But they would have been in the mix if Trey was healthy this year. At least that's what Vegas is telling you, because the over-under on the win total was 10.
Right, but that's also a complete guess. And we also know that the odds got better for the 49ers when Trey left and Jimmy came in. So I've reached a point where, and this is a classic American, or I guess just human story. You're in a situation, the grass looks greener on the other side. In a very rare circumstance that the 49ers have created, we got a chance to dip our toe in the water on the other side and then come back. And I got to admit something, which is that coming back felt better than the dipping of the toe in the water on the other side, because that other side got real scary real fast, because it felt like a let's go through the growing pain situation with a young quarterback. Why should you do that with an elite defense?
Yeah, I don't.
Why?
I think that you're overstating the growing that needed to take place with Trey Lance. We didn't see it. It was only 5 quarters. 4 quarters in a monsoon, 1 quarter where he gets hurt. So I know what you're saying in terms of the way his trajectory was looking. This year was going to be about winning with Trey Lance, but not giving Trey Lance the full complement of his abilities just yet. Kyle Shanahan was trying to thread that needle of, we're still going to be in the mix, which is what, by the way, they want to be in the mix every year too. But the reason why they moved off of Jimmy Garoppolo is because they thought they could get a quarterback who would not only be able to keep them in the mix, but help them win the mix when things got serious in late January and in February. And so far with Jimmy Garoppolo, Super Bowl loss, he wasn't good enough. They weren't good enough. NFC Championship game, he wasn't good enough. They weren't good enough.
All facts.
Which is why Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and company wanted to make this move. They want to be in the mix every year, too. They don't want to tank for 3 years and then be good in 2026.
I get the financial aspects of this as well. I know that the extensions are sitting there for George and for Fred and for Debo, and I understand all of those aspects, and it's why, by the way, I supported it then, and I'm not sitting here right now telling you that I don't support the effort on Trey Lance too. What I'm telling you is, just as a human and a football fan,
right,
when I watch all of the 2021 draft quarterbacks, this isn't even about Trey, it's about all of them. When I watch them go through the maturation process, as a fan, I'm like, I don't want to do that. But those teams are all doing that because they didn't have a choice.
Right.
The 49ers did.
Well, and they made the choice
to
have
go
a choice.
Through
it. And this is where people look at Kyle Shanahan and they attach labels like arrogant and hubris because Kyle Shanahan thought that he could do this with Trey Lance and still be in the mix. The Jets, new coach Robert Saleh, Zach Wilson, they weren't thinking, okay, young quarterback, we're in the mix.
Zero expectations.
Jacksonville, same thing. Now, Jacksonville this year might be a year ahead of schedule. They look like they could be a playoff team.
They might win the division.
Chicago is Chicago. They got it wrong for the 73rd consecutive time at quarterback.
Yep.
Davis Mills in Houston. I'm sorry, Houston, but it's going to be tough. Houston, we have a problem. Nice little quarterback.
They didn't invest nearly as much in him.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
So when you go in, I think Mac Jones in New England, that's a situation that's maybe the most interesting of all of them because he could be a guy to win in New England, but they've got bigger problems than just the quarterback. And I wonder how long for the gig the head coach is going to be if he stacks a couple of losing years in a row. I don't know if Bill's going to want to really grind this thing out and wait for Mac Jones to be a good quarterback.
I tell you why the Zappy thing, is that his name, by the way? Is it
Yes.
Zappy? The Zappy thing is bad for Mac Jones. For more reasons than the obvious. The Zappy thing is bad for Mac Jones because what have we always said about Mac Jones? You're like, well, this is nothing spectacular, but he's got this thing around him called the New England Patriots under Bill Belichick, and that's supportive and healthy, and so Mac doesn't need to be a star. Mac can be like, I don't know, Jimmy Garoppolo,
Right,
and
nice.
they can go,
Manager.
right? They can go win, and that's good enough. But then your third stringer comes in, and you look exactly the same. And you actually won a football game last week, and you damn near won a game at Lambeau Field where Zappy was thrown in without any reps. In fact, he was the backup in that game, and he got thrown in, and he almost won a football game at Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers and almost ruined my survivor pool. And all of a sudden you go, oh, Mac Jones out of the first round and Zappy off the street are the exact same, which tells me that it is the surroundings. It is the New England Patriots. So I don't know if I'm high on that either. So the overall point here is, you're right, I still have no idea what Trey Lance is. I will share or reshare my concerns I had 3 weeks ago, which is it feels like starting year 2, the 49ers are lacking a confidence in Trey Lance that they hoped they would have, and they don't.
Mike Silver actually reported as much in the Chronicle.
So that is the concern. And then you see Jimmy come back in, and here go the 49ers up the power rankings and right into the Super Bowl mix. And so you're like, well, if that's your baseline, and if this guy does take him on a third run into January, how many runs into January do you need before you go, I don't know, like maybe we should just keep doing this for a while?
Mark.
Is it 5?
Yeah.
I'm like, So
I need 5 runs.
This isn't
I need
even
a crooked number.
In the end, it's not even about Trey and Jimmy. It's just about an elite defense and a great organization taking their fan base through a growing period that they may not need to go through. And that's what this feeling is like. I don't want a growing period.
But they feel like they need to because they obviously didn't think that Jimmy Garoppolo was good enough to get them, and here's one of my favorites, over the hump.
Over the top.
Because they've been to the hump, they've been on the hump, but they haven't gotten over the hump, which is, I think, an unfair bar because one team wins the Super Bowl each year. And I know that this is probably breaking news for many of you, but getting to the conference championship game means that you're one of 4 teams still playing, but as a fan, we want the quest for 6. And as an organization, they want number 6, the quest for 6. And so they look at Jimmy G, and they obviously thought he's not good enough to be the guy to get us over the hump, which is why they make the move. And this is where Kyle Shanahan gets some criticism because the arrogance to think that you could take a young quarterback, a virtual rookie quarterback, with the elite defense, with this team that is built to win, and you thought that you could plug and play and have him go win. So think about what Michael Silver said to us earlier. Jimmy G, whatever he does this year, he more than likely is gone. What do you do next year with a team, by the way, that is still built to win?
And what he said was the idea of just relying solely on Trey Lance, not an option. Like they won't just be like, Trey, all in, 100% Trey. Like they're going to have a very high-level plan B in place or else they're not doing their jobs. That is directly what Mike said.
And I agree with him.
I agree with him totally.
So it means you're not bringing in Nate Sudfeld, not to disrespect Sudsy, but you're bringing in, and he mentioned Matt Ryan, or you're bringing in somebody who's a legitimate, been there, done that. I might be able to compete for the starting job. And what happens if next year, and I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but you bring in veteran quarterback TBD and he beats out Trey Lance?
Listen,
what then, Mark?
What I really love about what you just said is the idea of an unfair bar being set for any quarterback to say, you have to get us over the top. Because I want you to look around the league and look at the quarterbacks you all love, who also have not gotten you over the top.
Josh Allen.
Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's going to get a massive, massive deal. Does anybody look at Lamar and go, dude, like you're good, but I don't know, man. You just haven't quite got us over the hump. Lamar Jackson and Jimmy Garoppolo, with zero comps in terms of their skill set, are essentially the same player. What they're telling you is, if I'm healthy, I'm going to get you close to the end, and then we'll see what happens. That's exactly what Lamar's career has been. It's exactly what Jimmy's career has been. And nobody, if the Ravens were like, yeah, Lamar Jackson's at the podium and he's like, see ya, we're going to go draft somebody next year because this just isn't quite getting us over the top. Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes have his number. The Ravens fan base would be like, what on earth are you talking about? What are you doing? And it's the exact same story with a completely different character. So I'm just sharing a feeling in my belly, which is getting Jimmy back on the field made me realize you're taking us through a maturation journey I don't know if I want to go through.
Right.
And I don't know. I think that's when it got all controversial. Mike Silver's in the locker room and people are saying we're not sure about switching over to Trey. Doesn't it make more sense now? Doesn't it feel less controversial? They're not telling you, even in his soundbite about Jimmy, Jeff Wilson's like, Trey's our dude, and we love Trey. They're not telling you that they don't like Trey.
Of course.
They're telling you they don't want to go on a raise him up journey. They want to go win, and they all feel like they've got someone who can help them do that right now.
Yeah, they do.
And they're right.
Jimmy has won 2 of every 3 games in his career, and he's been to the playoffs multiple times, and he's won in the playoffs. So if you're a veteran in that locker room, Jeff Wilson Jr. has been around long enough, and any other player there, and you've been through the wars with Jimmy G, and you've won with Jimmy G, of course you're happy that he's there. And it's no disrespect to Trey Lance, but let's say Trey Lance was still your quarterback today, and Jimmy Garoppolo was still the backup. Well, Trey Lance has never been the starting quarterback on a trip to the Greenbrier where you play 2 games back-to-back on the East Coast. And he's never been the starting quarterback in a Monday night game, and he's never been the starting quarterback in a Ram rivalry. All these things that he's never done is what you're talking about, Mark. It's growing pains. And this is where Kyle Shanahan was trying to thread the needle with a virtual rookie quarterback, lightly tested, mostly unproven, and a veteran team, a ready-to-win team. He thought that he could have this quarterback do what he needed to do athletically, schematically, and all the rest of it, and they could still win games. Now, we'll never know if he was right. They might be 4-1 right now. They might have. They might be 1-4. We don't know what they would be with Trey Lance. We never will. But all we do know is that going into next year, this whole idea is going to be omnipresent. The same thing is going to exist next year because this Niner team is going to be built to win. Even if they lose some guys in free agency, this roster, they have enough signed commodities to where they're going to be good again next year going into camp. And if Trey Lance is your quarterback, we're right back to square one.
No, you made the comment the other day, right, about if you have a defense like this, you're in it. You're going to be in every game.
Right.
Now, I don't know about this week. Like, I think they're going to be fine, but this one scares me. Like, if everybody on the whole defensive line is gone, I feel like too many people are expecting the Niners to show up and have their defense look exactly the same with no Nick Bosa and no Ebicom and no Armstead and no Kinlaw. It's like, I don't think it's going to look the same. And so maybe this is a really interesting game for Jimmy because maybe the offense does need 3 touchdowns. Maybe they do need 4 touchdowns. I don't know if what if this kicker's missing all of his kicks? Like, there's all kinds. It still
might be Robbie Gould.
It might be. Right. Like, we don't know about even Bosa. Like, we don't know that. Right. But none of these guys practiced yesterday. If they don't practice today, now we're getting into a real scary spot in a road game.